It was dusk. The apartment was empty save for the two of them. As they lay entwined in warm embrace, this room, this bed was the universe. Aside from the faint sounds of their tranquil breathing, they were silent. She stroked the nape of his neck. He nuzzled her erect nipple, first gently with his nose, then licked it, tasted, smelled, and absorbed her body odor. It was a hot and humid August day, and they had been perspiring. Slowly he caressed her one breast as he softly rolled his face over the contours of the other. He pressed his body close against her, sighed, and fully spent, closed his eyes and soon fell into a deep, satisfying sleep. Ever so slowly, she slipped herself out from under him, lest she disturb him, cradled him in her arms, and moved him to his crib. Yeah, I regularly use Harlequin romance as my source material. Or worse, I'm not finished though. Having completed the 6 o'clock feeding, the 4-month-old had also experienced one more minute contribution to his further sexual development. That is just one of the stories for reflection coming from the Our Whole Lives Sexuality Education Curriculum, or OWL for short. It looked like it got you reflecting. Like a whole lot of reflecting. Now, some questions may include, what aspects of this story struck you as particularly sexual? Or did you think, of course the answer is yes, did you think that the male was a teenager or adult? Did you leap to that conclusion instantaneously? Why? Why? Have you considered that sexual experience and development occur at all stages of life? These are all fascinating and important questions, taking a person deeper into one of the most powerful dimensions of human existence. No less than life and death consequences can stem from choices around sexuality, as when we consider STDs, or the epidemic of suicides in gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender teens. And then there are the wounds to our sexual integrity via shaming, misinformation, unintended pregnancy, exploitation, violence that we can feel all of our lives. Artist and writer Melinda Gebbie says, "We are delicate. We bring our damage to our sexuality. We bring our hopes. We bring our self-image. We bring our world image. We bring what we believe we are. We bring what we believe we are not. Our blind spots, our prejudices, our sadness, everything comes out. A lot of people are left wanting and confused and having the idea that their body is like an unloved apartment building. It's up for grabs. It is absolutely of no worth. I say the word vagina, writes Eve Ensler, author of the Vagina Monologues, because when I first started saying it, I discovered how fragmented I was, how disconnected my body was from my mind. My vagina was something over there, way in the distance. I rarely lived inside it or even visited. I was busy working, writing, being a mother, being a friend. I did not see my vagina as my primary resource, my place of sustenance and humor and creativity. It was fraught there, full of fear. I'd been raped as a little girl. And although I'd grown up and done all the adult things one does with one's own vagina, I had never really re-entered that part of my body after I had been violated. I had essentially lived most of my life without my motor, without my center, without my second heart. The wounds hurt. People feeling their bodies are like unloved apartment buildings up for grabs. People living without their motor, their center, their second heart. People so distant from the sweetness of that story from a moment ago in which we saw the child breastfeeding at dusk, the room, the bed, the whole universe to them. And yet, we also don't want to forget the sexual joy that can be had way beyond infancy, all through the stages of our lives. Listen to Melinda Gebbie again. Sex is a metaphor for everything else, and everything else is a metaphor for sex as well, because sex is a coming together of two weather patterns, two separate countries, two entities in a conscious state of potentially blissful crisis, or chaos, or harmony. You're not quite sure what is going to happen, but it is the most catastrophic, exciting, and beautifully weakening experience that can happen to us. How can we not want to reflect on all of this, to become more wise about all of this, because become less reactive and more proactive, more values-focused, more values-driven? And yet here is the reality in America today, a tremendously over-sexualized society populated by millions and millions who don't want to talk about it in candid and informed ways. Did you get that paradox? Incredible over-sexualization. People don't want to talk about it. Parents who freak out if children are brought into honest and practical conversation about it. Parents who want their kids to remain perfectly innocent, even though those kids are bombarded by media-based sexual imagery and innuendo and can't possibly be perfectly innocent, even though what all kids actually need is self-defense against all of that. They need a way to critically interrogate all of that. Side story. One grandmother tells about an in-the-car conversation with her grandson, in-the-car conversations. Grandson surprises grandmother by stating very matter-of-factly that his brother came out of his mother's vagina. And then he goes on to share how he told his mom that she needs to put his brother back in there. Kids know something's going on. Kids know it. It is on internet sites. It is on phone apps. It is on television, movies, magazines, music, video games. Often they are sources of unrealistic and sometimes even dangerous messages about body image, gender roles, promiscuity. A survey of 1,351 randomly selected TV shows by the Henry J. Kaiser Family Foundation found that over the course of 1 week, 56% of TV programs and 67% of prime time shows contained sexual content in word or deed. Yet, only 1 in 10 such shows mentioned contraception or safe sex or the possibility of delaying sexual activity. Now, given this, one could only hope that public education might help us out here. One might only hope that. Oh, I see. You're a cynical group this morning. Well, if you're not, you will be in a moment. Let me hit you with some statistics. Only slightly more than half of the states are legally required to provide some instruction about HIV/AIDS, and slightly less than half actually require sex education in public schools. And of these states, less than 40% require their curricula to be medically factually or technically accurate. Yeah, that's right. As a teenager, you are bombarded by sexual messages in the larger world, and so you hope to be able to get things straightened out at school, but it's highly likely that A, your biology textbook is going to have a better explanation for how mosses and ferns reproduce than for your own species. And B, if you do receive information, it might very well be wrong or misleading, and for sure it will emphasize the risk-related and negative side of sex and nothing positive. Nothing positive. Many school districts require sex education to go the abstinence-only route. That's what they require. Doesn't matter that abstinence only has been an abject failure in every place it's been tried. Doesn't matter that study after study shows that comprehensive sexuality education like OWL actually decreases the likelihood of teenagers having sex. Millions of dollars are still being poured into abstinence-only programs. Writer Savannah Hemmings shares an experience she had with this in the 9th grade. She says, each year my teachers reiterated the importance of postponing all sexual activity until marriage, followed by the benefits of adoption as a positive choice in the event of an unwanted pregnancy. In 9th grade, I remember a blushing girl who dared to interrupt our health teacher's sermon, a bad sermon. That's offensive to me, sermons can be good. Our health teacher's sermon about HIV rates with this question, but what about condoms? To which the teacher responded, I am only allowed to tell you that condoms are not 100% effective. That's what she said, and then she promptly moved on. Savannah Hemming goes on to say, this brief exchange became the only contraception acknowledgement I can remember in 6 years of public school family life education. And we wonder why there is so much sexual dysfunction in our nation. Unitarian Universalism says no to that. It's been saying no to that for more than 40 years. For more than 40 years, originally through a program called About Your Sexuality, and now through our whole lives, we have been providing up-to-date information and candid answers to questions, activities to help people clarify values and to improve decision-making skills, effective group building to create safe and supportive peer groups, education about sexual abuse and exploitation and harassment, opportunities to critique media messages about gender and sexuality, acceptance of diversity, encouragement to act for justice. For more than 40 years, we have been saying this. We have been saying all persons are sexual. We have been saying sexuality is a good part of the human experience. We have been saying sexuality includes much more than sexual behavior. We have been saying human beings are sexual from the time they are born until they die. We have been saying it is natural to express sexual feelings in a variety of ways. We have been saying people engage in sexual behavior for a variety of healthy reasons, so as to express caring and love, or to experience intimacy and connection with one another, or to share pleasure, or to bring new life into our world, or simply to experience fun and relaxation. We have been saying this. Sexuality in our society is damaged by violence, exploitation, alienation, dishonesty, abuse of power, the treatment of people as objects. We have been saying it is healthier for young adolescents to postpone sexual intercourse until, as one of UUCA's OWL instructors, Jean Woodall says, as she says, so that it needs to happen at the right time and place, and with honor and respect for self and other. For 40 years, we've been saying this. Teaching that is tailored to the needs of different age groups. UUCA OWL teacher Katie Sadler-Stevenson says, for young children, it is important to learn how to name the parts of their body and how they work without being able to do that without feeling shame or feeling embarrassment. It also encourages children to be empowered about their own bodies, what those bodies are capable of, and having body autonomy. Katie likes to talk about that. For older children, she says, and adults, it helps people to make healthy decisions by being knowledgeable and hopefully having the opportunity to think about things before they happen in real life. But now let me ask you this. Do you think all this has happened without generating any controversy? Without coverage in the press? Allegations of violating obscenity codes, courtroom drama, and on and on. What do you think? We cannot underestimate how countercultural the values are that animate our whole lives, or its predecessor program about your sexuality. We cannot underestimate that. Just yesterday, I was reading an article in The Atlantic from the April 28, 2016 edition, and I found this statement from Sharon Slater, the president of the advocacy group Family Watch International, who has a new documentary out entitled The War on Children: Exposing the Comprehensive Sexuality Education Agenda. Here's her statement. Comprehensive sexuality education encourages children to engage in sexual experimentation and high-risk sexual behaviors. And then there's psychiatrist Miriam Grossman, a psychiatrist who regularly lectures on the topic of sex education, who argues that abstinence-based education is essential to protecting children from sexually irresponsible behavior. But there's nothing new about this sort of opposition to programs like OWL. Reverend Jennifer Hamlin-Nevias tells the story of the time, about 18 years ago, when the TV show 60 Minutes did an expose on OWL. Did you know this? Maybe you might have seen it. Originally, she says, the Unitarian Universalist Association had offered to have a male professor who taught in the area of human sexuality for the interview, but 60 Minutes didn't like him. Reverend Makar Morris, then the head of the UUA's Religious Education Department, she got the sense that 60 Minutes wanted to interview someone who would be easy to manipulate. Eventually, the UUA suggested Bobby Nelson, a director of religious education from Massachusetts who had worked with the development of our sexuality education programs. 60 Minutes agreed to her. Now, Bryant Gumbel, he was working there at the time, Bryant Gumbel, as the story goes, barely got a word in edgewise. When the interview was over, he said, well, that wasn't so bad, was it? That's when Bobby Nelson shook her finger at Bryant Gumbel and said, you should be ashamed for what you just did. That's what she did. Reverend Hamlin-Nevias ends the story by saying, I think maybe 60 Minutes expected some sweet little church lady. They did not know how fierce our religious educators can be in helping to raise up our children. 60 Minutes sexism did not serve them well that day. It did not. That's exactly right. Unitarian Universalist religious educators are fierce. We are fierce for our children and for people of all ages. We are fierce about the truth, which is that talking about sex in candid and factually informed ways does not so much inspire irresponsibility as responsibility and respect. We are We are fierce. We are fierce about that. Fierce about helping people make wise decisions about their sexual health and behavior. Fierce about equipping people with accurate, age-appropriate information in human development and relationships and personal skills, sexual behavior, society and culture. Not just negative stuff, but positive stuff too. Fierce about helping people clarify their values, build interpersonal skills, understand the spiritual, emotional, social, and political aspects of sexuality as well. Fierce. And the ripple effects are amazing. One has to do with standing on the side of love. Every opportunity I can, I wear. Just not gay pride. Reverend Hamlin Nevias rightly points out that when AIDS activism started, we UU showed up. The Holly Near song that we have in our hymnal, the one that goes, "We are a gentle, angry people," you know that one? That one. It is likely the first hymn published in an American church hymnal that used the word gay to mean homosexual, not happy. We could do that, she says, because we did all this education. We knew that sex and sexuality are important parts of each human being. When the movement for marriage equality came to the forefront of American culture, we were already there, standing and singing and chanting and demanding and voting and welcoming. We could not have done that if it were not for About Your Sexuality, if it were not for our whole lives, if it were not for our religious educators. Fierce. For more than 40 years, because it's worth being fierce about the most important things in life, because the implications are life and death, if not lifelong, because sex is a metaphor for everything else, and everything is a metaphor for sex as well, because sex is a coming together of two weather patterns. It is a coming together of two nations. It is a coming together of two entities in a conscious state of potentially blissful crisis or chaos or harmony. You're not quite sure what is going to happen, but it is the most catastrophic, exciting, and beautifully weakening thing that can happen to us.